Je crois qu'on peut y aller. Mesdames et messieurs.
I think that we can start. Hello, everyone. I know that it's very hot. Conditions are tough. Nonetheless, thanks a lot for being with us. We are delighted. A little bit of discipline, please. We have two high-caliber speakers. And those speakers will shed light on many things. Alexandre Bompard, the CEO of Carrefour, the president of a big federation, Federation of Commerce and Distribution Retailing, and Patrick Martin, the boss of a boss, the president of the employers. We'll be talking about France, wages, Europe. What is the winning equation? So, something that we've heard repeatedly in France, we have an issue with wages and consumption. Alexandre Bompard, what do you observe in your stores, in your hypermarkets, in your supermarkets? So we can look at the consumption patterns. What about our consumption patterns? Is consumption suffering? First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm delighted to be with Patrick Martin. It will be a conflicting controversy. They've been thinking about that. So I have two people coming from Lyon on stage. It's very difficult when you come from Saint-Etienne. When I talk about consumption, it's not always easy. When we talk about businesses in France, we tend to talk about competitiveness, investments, trade, balance. And because of my function, and when I think about things, consumption plays a key role. So 50% of growth will come from consumption. When consumption is coughing, we have a problem with trade, but we have a general problem with growth. Over the past 2 years, 3 years, we had hyperinflation. Volumes have decreased. There was almost a collapse of consumption. 1/3 of French people didn't consume. They made some decisions, and their purchasing power is improving because inflation is at zero. 50% of French people think that purchasing power hasn't improved. There are lots of tensions, volumes down, savings worth 17%, and that's a record low. But since the start of the year, there has been a slight resumption of consumption. Consumption has dwindled for 2 or 3 years because of hyperinflation. Consumption is back, and the quality of consumption has improved. What do you mean by that? The growth of organic food has decreased, but it has picked up. Some specific purchases have picked up. So there are signals whereby consumption is resuming. It's fragile. That's why I'm fighting, because I don't want to undermine consumption. Consumption is an engine. It's a driving force. That's why I've asked public authorities to talk about public spending, tax revenues, because it creates anxiety. If we've got 5 points more in terms of savings, it's because you have huge fiscal uncertainties. Consumption is back. Consumption has picked up, so we need to protect this engine. When you are a business leader, it's very difficult to be positive. Of course, I don't want to put forward some pessimistic views. So, Patrick Martin, what about you? What do you think of this recovery? Alexandre, Fanny. So, Alexandre is the CEO of Carrefour. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business leader. Above all, I do share what Alexandre has said, but I can tell you that people have adopted a wait-and-see attitude, and all the growth engines have stalled for the same reasons. There's a French component. I do agree with what my colleague said. There are lots of political uncertainties. this uncertain period has been lasting for quite a long time. We have still to wait until 2027 when there will be some presidential elections, and the public agents, economic public agents, are prudent. Consumption has picked up slightly. Investment of non-financial companies has dwindled. International competition will increase. There are some requirements in terms of decarbonization. Of course, we should be able to invest full gear. And consumption is picking up, but we have lots of companies that have closed their doors. It's a kind of huge social plan, restructuring plan for commerce. For the past 18 months, 50,000 jobs have been removed, curtailed. It's crazy. In 1 week, Princesse Tam Tam, Comptoir des Cotonniers, Keza, 2,500 jobs have been lost. And if you look at the situation, people were indifferent. When a plant of 100 people is jeopardized, I'm very worried. And 50,000 jobs have been cut over the past 18 months, and people had been indifferent. Why? Because consumption is in a bad patch. Consumption was very bad in 2023-24. Consumption is slightly picking up in 2025, and all the players, the retailers, they are coping with a cutthroat competition that is new. There are Chinese platforms, China Temu. I will be their main spokesperson, and the Chinese platform is moving into Europe. They don't comply with the regulations, social rules, fiscal rules, tariff rules, and they don't comply with the basic food security rules. You are a toy manufacturer. You are a manufacturer of garments. You are facing players who are delivering 200 million parcels a year, and they don't comply with the rules. 95% of the parcels, when they are controlled, from time to time they are not controlled, they are illegal. Lots of illegal parcels, and everybody is indifferent. And I can tell you that lots of companies have defaulted due to that situation. So we are doing a lot for the industry, but you've kept saying that we need to reindustrialize the country. We have some issues with the advent of some Asian countries. Do you think that the government is focusing too much on reindustrialization or not enough on commerce? It is not binary. It is not industry versus commerce or construction. The whole process is integrated. We are supposed to get a controversy, but we have reached a consensus. We agree on many things. So we have to be cautious with the different types of donors, and I attended a meeting with Chinese representatives, and we had representatives from cosmetic, toy industries and the members of the consumption club, and they got the same analysis as that of Alexandre. And allow me to insist on that point. There are major challenges in terms of product compliance. These industrialists, they were surprised because they were controlled, especially in the toy industry, because the life of children is at stake. The life of children could be in jeopardy, and the Chinese company is not under the same rules, and some checks and controls could be done. But at the end of the day, we have some doubts about the macroeconomic figures of consumption, not regarding the food figures. I'm talking about non-food products. These major operators, they understate or underdeclare the value of the products that they export to France. Some corrective actions should be taken. So if you doubt the figures, that's a problem. These are the figures that they declared. The average value of a parcel being declared by China, I might be sued for libel. The value of a parcel is €8 in a freight cargo. So this begs many questions. So there are interests that are intertwined across all the business sectors. We represent all the business sectors. This is what I think. If you want to get a prosperous industry, it's important to talk about services, construction services. So I'm not targeting you, Fanny. It's not a binary issue. In our country, creation of wealth is not fostered enough. I look at what is happening in the world and within Europe, and Europe is abiding by the same rules. So we have some European neighbors who are doing well in terms of growth, in terms of public finance, and they've been able to recover. So the real issue is not to manage the shortage, but how can we create more wealth, and to create more wealth to increase wages. In France, we have a problem, the weight of social protection, the difference between a gross wage and the net wage. What should we be doing? Should we implement a social VAT? What do you think of that?
This important debate shouldn't hide the primary discussion. The primary discussion is to reduce public spending, particularly social protection spending, to reduce the social security contributions on households and on businesses. We can see how difficult that's going to be. There's another issue which is not easy, which is how you finance social protection. I think the debate is getting more and more mature. I have noticed a few intellectual victories that we've had recently, and there are two key issues that are starting to emerge. They might be a little bit taboo. One is a defined contribution pension system, and then the second one is VAT to fund social protection. What do you think about this matter? You've said that it's something that you think we should look at. Well, that's right. I'm not the only one to say that as well. We should look at the sector-by-sector compatibility of this type of measure. But at the end of the day, I think there is a bit of a consensus that is starting to form. There are some trade union representatives that are here, and we do have a real issue of the way we fund social security. Too much of it is funded by businesses and employees. In areas where businesses are not really legitimate, the funding is based on mandatory contributions from businesses. Let's let Alexandre Bompard say something. Well, I'd like to just finish. The ideology around this issue is ridiculous, because a major part of social protection is funded by VAT and other forms of contribution, about 57 billion out of 230 billion. I'm going to wrap up with this. We have 1.7 trillion euros that are spent for social protection. We're talking about transferring 10 billion euros, 40 billion perhaps maximum, to general taxation rather than taxes on employers and jobs. I don't think that should lead to a massive controversy. Would you increase VAT by a couple of points? Well, I think exactly the opposite, but not for a sector-specific reason. What have we seen over the last 5 years? Every time that we talked about these issues, which seem very smart when we talk, let's reduce the social security charges and put a bit more on petrol. What happens? The yellow jackets come out in the streets. VAT is the most unfair tax. We all pay the same rate. It's the most unfair tax there is. The only idea would be if we said to the French population, we said we're going to raise VAT by 2 points. Why would we do that? to reduce public deficits, to improve business competitiveness by reducing their social security contributions, or are we doing it to give disposable income to households by reducing their contributions? We don't know. The issue of social VAT is talked about for one reason, because it's very difficult to reduce public deficits. That's very clear. And the idea that we could go back to the French people and say, "I've got good news. I've tried to send out a new idea and what I'm going to do is raise VAT, and that will enable us to reduce the social security contributions, either on the employer side or the employee side." I think it's a bad idea. I think we should stop talking about such issues to French people. It's a small amount, as Patrick said, but we saw that small amounts and small issues, when we did our big, clever equations, which seemed like small issues, become big issues for ordinary French people. And we have consumption, which is the only driver which is working just a little bit, even a little bit of consumption that's growing. Let's leave it to grow for a little bit. We haven't worked out how we can do this thing by raising VAT and reducing employer and employee social security contributions. Let's forget about this. Let's continue about reducing public spending and think about this crazy question of how can I find a sustainable way of reducing public spending. That's the key issue. We understood that it's difficult to get you to disagree, but there were perhaps a few little nuances between you there. But we could have some questions from the floor. It'd be good to introduce yourself, but ask a question. Don't make a comment. Yes, go ahead, sir. I think there should be a microphone somewhere available. If not, go ahead. Obviously, there won't be translation if the question is raised without a microphone.
Ah non, c'est difficile.
Oui, effectivement.
My name is Serge Gardelli. I'm the Secretary General of the trade union in the Bouches-du-Rhône area. What's your question? I've got a question about investment. Investment today means jobs for tomorrow. So I've got a question for Alexandre Bompard. On some things, I agree with Alexandre Bompard about VAT, and I disagree with Patrick Martin. I agree with what you're saying. However, there is an issue where we disagree, the issue about maintaining purchasing power amongst employees. I've got a question about the location management of Carrefour shops. What's your question? Okay, I'm going to ask a question. In terms of outsourcing the employees, you've outsourced a number of employees. They kept their jobs. You'll tell me that. You said that. I'm going to stop you. We need to ask a question. Mr. Bompard, I want to say something to you. Instead of outsourcing those jobs, you should have invested in the stores in order to boost their momentum through investment, in order to develop the wealth of Carrefour. I suggest that the internal Carrefour discussion is something that we talk about together, because it's perhaps not an issue that interests everyone. But there are two things that we need to do. Constantly invest in our stores. We've invested a record amount this year, the record for the last 10 years. But there are shops that are struggling, and we call on entrepreneurs to help us. We've not closed stores. We transfer them to entrepreneurs to manage in order to save jobs and to enable those businesses to develop. I'll discuss further with you. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, there's a gentleman over there at the side. A final question, please. A question, please. My name is Samuel. I manage a stoneworking business, a small business. I've heard the two speakers talking about the issues. I think I've understood what's at stake. My question is as follows. We talk a lot about sharing wealth, but do you think in our country one day? I know that as stonemasons, we love our countries. Do you think we will have a debate about how we could create wealth in a way that enables it to be redistributed? The real question is, how can we create wealth? Has anyone got an answer to that? I touched on the question earlier on. I said that the real issue is generating wealth, creating wealth, rather than managing shortages. For people who've had a bit of time to waste, what was the issue with the conclave, as it was called, about pensions in France? It's not issue about tough working conditions. Those are not the key issues. The key issues are that we couldn't agree. People couldn't agree on what the impact of job creation in France would have on growth. Getting people to work for longer, not just older people, get young people working as well. It's better to help people to move through professional transitions. We signed an agreement very recently on professional transitions, and our argument as the MEDEF Employers Organisation is to say that if we invest more, if we've got enough money to invest, but if we work more, our country will have the opportunity to save jobs, increase employment, and generate greater purchasing power for ordinary men and women. The unemployment rate is going back up. Wages have increased this year, but only for part of the population, not enough of the population. And I suggested to all of the trade unions that we should talk about a subject which seems very theoretical, but it's very fundamental, a question of the French production model. Do we want to go back to prosperity in our country? So should we give our citizens a desire to do business rather than trying to struggle a little bit to find a little bit of extra money here and there? I agree with you, and it's quite completely true for the construction section. So will there be a conclave for this discussion about this new social model? Thank you very much. We're going to wrap up there. It's been very short, I'm afraid. There are some discussions. I'm sure that Alexandre Bompard and Mr. Martin will be able to discuss things with you. Thank you very much for everyone who's been there. I hope you enjoy your next session. Thank you.